President Trump a short time ago telling Walmart that the company should, I'm quoting now, eat the cost, end quote, of higher tariffs. The comments come after the retail giant said this week that it would raise prices because of Trump's tariffs being too high. Walmart has more than 4,600 stores in the U.S. It's also the biggest private employer in the country with 1.6 million workers. Several countries that supply Walmart include China, and they're facing tariffs between 10 and 30% right now. Augusta Sareva is a reporter for Bloomberg News, and she has been writing about this. Great to see you, Augusta. So President Trump is warning Walmart not to pass the tariffs on to the consumer. After Walmart has announced that it would have to do that, is it possible for Walmart to back down on what it thinks is the reality for them?
Thank you for having me. Well, it's a tough choice, not only for Walmart, but for a lot of businesses out there, right? Because what Walmart has been saying is that they will try to keep prices as low as possible for as long as possible. But the thing is that they have a tough choice to make, right? As they start seeing higher tariffs, they have to choose between keeping that demand at a time when consumer sentiment is going down, at a time when people are starting to feel jittery about the economy, and protecting their margins. So we could see them back down at some point, but that might not be the case as the tariffs start to make their way across the economy.
So what does this potentially mean, for the millions of Americans who do shop at Walmart and other retailers who import a lot of their products from China and other countries that are indeed facing higher tariffs?
Yeah, that essentially means that after years of high inflation, at the same time, the consumers are also seeing high borrowing costs, right? Those credit card rates, they could see even higher prices. So for consumers, it's a matter of making choices, right? So if prices start to go up at a fast rate, they might start to pull back on some other things like vacations, for example, right? And we are starting to see people feel a little less inclined to buy non-essentials at this point.
Yeah, and among the consumers, who are likely to be hardest hit?
In this case, of course, it's low-income consumers, right? They're the ones that have been bearing the brunt of inflation for a long time. But at the same time, we know that tariffs, there's lots of research on that. We know that tariffs tend to hit low-income consumers harder, right? Because they impact everyone just the same. So if you make less, that's a bigger chunk of your income that's going toward those extra costs. So for low-income consumers who have been seeing higher prices for a while, the labor market is still strong, where wage gains are not growing at the same rate that we did see in the past few years. This could be another challenge for them.
And as for Walmart, I mean, what does this tell you that Walmart is making this kind of pronouncement, ahead of time? I mean, or giving a warning to consumers? What is its objective?
Yeah, first of all, they don't want to shock the consumer, right? So by doing that, they don't want to see people going out there like we saw at the start of the pandemic and buying lots of toilet paper when prices do go up, right? So they're trying to warn the consumer that this is coming so that people can prepare ahead of time. But at the same time, you could infer that they're trying to send a message to the White House, right? We know that big box retailers like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, they have met with President Trump in the past month. So that's also a way for them to tell the president, look, we're thinking of raising prices, but there is a way for us not to do so.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Augusta Sareva, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
President Trump is sending one of America's biggest retailers a warning, telling Walmart it should, quote, eat tariffs and not raise prices on its consumers. That post coming in response to the company's CEO announcing it has no option but to raise prices due to the president's tariffs on China. And joining us now, Jack Buffington. He's a professor of supply chain management at the University of Denver. Jack, you are the perfect person to talk to about all of this. Let's just start first with, is it possible financially for Walmart and these other companies to absorb the cost of these tariffs?
Hi, Jessica. As someone who used to work for one of Walmart's suppliers, I know how hard they work to keep prices down. So let me give you a little math here. So the tariffs so first off, about a third of Walmart's products are subject to tariffs. Tariffs used to be about 1%. On the average of all the countries, it's probably going to go up to about 10 to 15%. Their net profit margin is less than 3%. So if they eat these tariffs, they will actually lose money. So Walmart will figure it out. Companies like Amazon will figure it out. It's some of those other retailers that are really going to struggle. But even an efficient giant like Walmart has a very difficult time absorbing these tariffs.
Yeah. And we've gotten new data from the University of Michigan, their survey on consumer sentiment. It's now at the second lowest point on record for the month of April. Were you surprised by this?
I don't think I was very surprised by that. Just a couple weeks before, the consumer price index came down low, which was seen as good news, but I see it as a softening of consumer demand. And I think all the uncertainty that's happening in the supply chain, and we also need to understand that a lot of people are not just consumers in the supply chain, they're also workers in the supply chain, that this is leading to some uncertainty that is softening consumer demand.
I also want to ask you about the fact that we've seen these ports all along the West Coast looking pretty empty after China halted all its shipping to the U.S. So is big retailers like Walmart, that's already dealing with just like the financial impact of tariffs, now you actually have the physical impact about the merchandise, but also these smaller businesses, so many small businesses that make up the United States economy. What does it mean for both of these types of retailers?
Yeah, first off, just to mention what's going on at the ports is, you may recall in April, there was a surge of all the ports, of the containers going through the ports. And then in May, it goes back down, the negative 35%. And now it's going to surge back up again in June, because the third quarter is peak season for all the holidays. So what's happening in supply chains when you have this up and down is you lose capacity and you lose efficiency, which means the ports can ship less at higher prices. And you mentioned Walmart. Companies like that are going to do just fine. It's the small guys that are going to really experiencing challenge of getting product supply and the prices that they're going to be able to offer their consumers. So again, I think in these circumstances, the big guys are going to be able to compete. It's the small guys that are going to be punished.
Eat the tariffs. That's the message tonight from President Trump to Walmart after the company warned it would have to raise prices because of the president's tariff war with China. The president demanded Walmart eat the tariffs and not pass higher prices on to customers, adding, quote, "I'll be watching." Gene Soroka is joining us now. He's a global trade expert. He's also the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. Last week, there were no cargo ships entering the port from China. Have things changed with the easing of these tariffs? How would you say things are now?
Good evening, Jessica. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
For the month of May, we'll have 17 of 80 scheduled sailings canceled coming to Los Angeles. Now, the balance of those will have some port calls in China, but most are impacting that import cargo flow coming from China. So it's going to be a fairly light month for us. Now, as we talk about what happens closer to home on the docks, that means fewer job opportunities for longshoremen and truck drivers, warehouse workers as well.
And so what does this mean more broadly, too, for the store shelves beyond just the port? What would be coming into the country and being sold in stores?
Jessica, we're cutting it real close on some seasonal products. Summer fashion, back to school, Halloween, and May is typically the month where importers place orders to factories in Asia for the all-important Christmas and year-end holiday season. Not knowing exactly what price or quantity to buy right now is the bigger part of the questioning.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I think there's also just this bigger issue, which is regardless of what happens, it's not just flipping a switch to get things, quote, back to normal. There is some lag time, right? That can take some time.
That's right. We've seen over the past few days bookings or reservations for shipments tick up just a little bit. We've gone a few weeks with cargo that's already been manufactured and sitting in China, and now importers are trying to scoop some of that up when the tariffs were reduced to 30%. Still a really big number for a lot of companies. But I don't see a deluge of cargo coming across the Pacific right now because companies likely are going to be more selective in how much they buy in the coming months.
Yeah. And then how fast can the supply chain catch up to this constant fluctuation? Or can it? Or does it just kind of do fits and starts as everything continues to fluctuate?
Yeah, this is going to be really difficult. 90 days of a reprieve is not a long time in our business. And for those that want to pick up some of that cargo after we saw that tariff relief out of the meetings in Geneva, it takes the shipping companies about 2 weeks to reposition their vessels in places like Qingdao, Shanghai, Xiamen, and Yantian. And then another 2 weeks to come this way to Los Angeles before we distribute throughout the country. So that lag time is real.
Yeah. And so bottom line, what should people, because you're like where the rubber meets the road there at the ports in terms of getting goods into this country. What should people out there expect in the coming weeks?
What we see are that there'll be fewer selections on store shelves and online buying platforms, and likely prices will be higher.
Okay. We will keep that in mind. Jean Soroka, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica.